The night descends, a gentle velvet cloak unfurling over the world, casting long, tender shadows from ancient stone towers. A sliver of pale moonlight, like a whispered secret, spills through arched window panes, painting silver streaks across the quiet floor. This is a time for rest, for letting go of the day's hurried pace. Breathe deeply, let your mind drift, and allow me, the quiet storyteller of this night, to gently guide you on a journey. If this story truly touches your heart, please consider hitting like, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment to share your thoughts. Tonight, we won't simply sleep. We'll embark on a soft, meandering voyage back to a world long past, a realm where every thread woven, every step taken, every hushed word spoken spun itself into a unique tapestry of customs. These weren't mere habits. They were the very heartbeat of an era, leaving an indelible mark on every soul. Imagine a time when life moved at a different rhythm, dictated not by clocks and deadlines, but by the sun's gentle arc and the ancient whispers of tradition. This was the Middle Ages, a vast, sprawling canvas of human experience, often misunderstood, but infinitely rich in its distinct ways of being. What made these medieval customs so profoundly distinctive? It wasn't just their outward appearance, the grand, flowing robes, or the solemn, intricate rituals. It was the intricate web of beliefs, fears, hopes, and unspoken rules that intertwined beneath the surface, shaping existence from the highest courts to the lowliest village. Consider for a moment how deeply ingrained these practices were. They weren't optional additions to life. They were life, breathing meaning into every waking moment and even accompanying souls into the silence of death. They were the very fabric that held their society together, giving structure and meaning to a world far less predictable than our own. In a time when scientific understanding was nascent and the natural world often felt overwhelming, customs provided comfort, order, and a sense of belonging. They were born of necessity, of community, and of a deep, abiding faith that shaped their understanding of the cosmos. As we delve into this ancient world, we'll discover that medieval customs served a multitude of purposes, far beyond what meets the eye. They were social contracts, unwritten laws that governed interactions between lord and serf, knight and maiden, merchant and artisan. They dictated everything from the precise way a lady should curtsy to the proper method of addressing a king. These were the invisible threads that bound disparate elements of society into a cohesive whole, fostering a sense of shared identity and mutual obligation. Imagine the quiet understanding that passed between villagers performing a harvest ritual, their movement synchronized, their hearts united by generations of shared practice. This wasn't merely rote action. It was a communal affirmation of their place in the world, their connection to the land, and their reliance on one another. Beyond their social function, medieval customs were also powerful instruments of power and status. In a highly stratified society, the way one dressed, ate, or even spoke was a clear indicator of one's position. Sumptuarial laws dictated who could wear what fabrics or colors, serving as a visual shorthand for social hierarchy. A noble's elaborate attire, adorned with rare dyes and intricate embroidery, wasn't just fashionable.
It was a deliberate, public declaration of wealth and influence. Even the way one greeted another, the specific gestures or words used, could convey respect, deference, or authority. These seemingly trivial details formed a complex language of social signaling, understood by all, reinforcing the established order and distinguishing the powerful from the humble. This intricate dance of custom was a daily performance where every participant knew their role, their place, and the subtle cues that maintained societal balance. The distinction of medieval customs also lay in their organic, slow-burning evolution. Unlike the rapid shifts of modern trends, these practices often emerged over centuries, shaped by generations of trial and error, adaptation to local environments, and the slow, steady accumulation of wisdom. They were rooted in the soil, in the rhythms of the seasons, and in the collective memory of communities. A farming technique, a method of building, a specific way of celebrating a festival. These weren't invented overnight. They were honed and perfected through continuous practice, passed down from elder to youth, becoming woven into the very identity of a village or a region. This gradual, almost geological formation of custom gave it a profound sense of permanence and authenticity, a feeling that these were truly the ways of our people. Consider the profound connection to the land, an undeniable force that shaped much of medieval custom. The farmer's almanac, dictated by the turning of the seasons, wasn't just a guide for agriculture. It was a spiritual calendar. Planting, harvesting, even specific days for animal breeding were imbued with ritual and belief, reflecting a deep reverence for the earth that sustained them. The very act of tilling the soil became a sacred duty, a collaboration with nature, where human effort was intertwined with divine blessing. This practical yet spiritual relationship with their environment fostered a distinct set of customs that celebrated fertility, abundance, and the delicate balance of life. We will explore how these distinct customs manifested in various facets of their existence. From the gentle blessings invoked in a misty morning church, where hope, frail yet persistent, was kindled through drops of holy water and the light touch of a priest's fingers, a silent symphony of faith harmonizing with human suffering. To the quiet, rhythmic life of the peasant, where practicality dictated both their attire and their daily routines, reflecting an unbreakable bond with the earth and its cyclical embrace. Then we will transition softly to the solemnity of farewells, where the tolling of church bells marked not an end, but a serene passage, emphasizing a dignified acceptance of mortality and a quiet faith in realms beyond. Our journey will then lead us to the glittering world of the nobility, where life unfurled with a unique elegance and intricate formality. We'll observe the grand ballroom, not as a place of boisterous revelry, but as a silent stage where every graceful movement and precise gesture spoke volumes about social standing and the delicate art of alliances. Even the fantastical, elongated tips of their poulaines, shoes that stretched beyond belief, sometimes tied to the knee, will reveal themselves not merely as a fashion statement, but as a bold, silent proclamation of power, wealth, and a leisure that scorned manual labor. And finally, we'll step into the hushed workshops where silk, gold thread, and rare dyes transformed into garments that were not just beautiful, but living symbols of status, scarcity, and the unparalleled artistry of their craft. As we gently drift through these layers of history, remember that our purpose is not to analyze or decipher, but to observe, to feel, to let the unique essence of these medieval customs wash over you like a soft lullaby from a distant past. Allow the imagery to unfold slowly in your mind's eye, letting each scene, each detail, weave itself into a comforting blanket of contemplation. There's no need to grasp at understanding, only to let the whispers of antiquity soothe your thoughts and prepare your spirit for the embrace of sleep.
As the first tendrils of dawn, frail and hesitant, painted the eastern sky with muted shades of rose and gray, a different kind of light began to stir within the ancient stone walls of a village church. The air, still cool from the night's embrace, carried the faint, earthy scent of damp soil, mingling with the subtle, sweet aroma of beeswax candles that had burned low through hours of quiet vigil. A profound sense of peace, fragile yet potent, seemed to cling to the very air, inviting every breath to deepen, every muscle to loosen its grip. This was not the hurried scramble of modern mornings, but a slow, deliberate unveiling, where time itself seemed to stretch and soften, preparing the soul for something deeper. The church, a sturdy sentinel of faith, crafted from rough-hewn stone and timber, stood as the heart of the medieval community, a silent witness to countless generations. Its narrow, arched windows, like watchful eyes, allowed only slivers of the nascent light to pierce the perpetual twilight within, making the flickering candlelight glow with an almost mystical intensity. Dust motes danced in these slender beams, tiny universes suspended in the hallowed air, reminding one of the countless souls who had sought solace and strength within these very walls. The stone floor, worn smoothed by centuries of countless footsteps, whispered tales of silent prayers and whispered hopes. Here, the boundary between the earthly and the divine felt exquisitely thin, almost transparent, as if the veil between worlds could be lifted by a simple, earnest breath. Soon the soft, rhythmic tolling of the church bell began, a sound that transcended mere noise, becoming a living pulse in the quiet morning. Each resonant peal, unhurried and deep, seemed to travel not just through the crisp air, but directly into the listener's very bones, vibrating with an ancient summons. It was a sound that spoke of continuity, of timelessness, of a sacred rhythm that had governed lives for generations. This wasn't an alarm to rouse one to action, but a gentle call to contemplation, an invitation to step away from the mundane and enter a space where the spirit could find quiet repose. The sound lingered in the air, echoing off distant hills, a sonic embrace that gathered the scattered thoughts of the awakening village and drew them inexorably towards the sacred space. As the bell's echoes softened into a hum, figures began to emerge from the shadowed lanes, their footsteps muffled on the dewy ground. Farmers, their hands calloused from the earth's embrace, their faces etched with the lines of sun and toil, walked alongside their wives, whose simple woolen dresses blended with the muted tones of the dawn. Children, still sleepy-eyed but with an innate reverence, clutched their parents' hands, their small forms adding to the silent procession.
They moved not with haste, but with a quiet dignity, each step a small act of devotion. A quiet murmur, like the gentle rustling of leaves in a breeze, accompanied their entrance, a symphony of hushed greetings and soft sighs, until even these sounds subsided into a collective, expectant silence. The interior of the church was a sanctuary of soft light and profound stillness. The air was thick with the scent of old wood, damp stone, and the lingering fragrance of frankincense from previous services, a scent that seemed to hold within it the accumulated prayers of centuries. People knelt on the cold stone floor, their bodies bowed in humble reverence, their expressions a testament to the myriad burdens and hopes they carried. Some faces were gaunt, etched with the privations of a hard life. Others held a simple, trusting innocence. Yet in their shared posture, in the quiet sincerity of their gaze towards the altar, there was a deep, unifying sense of purpose. Here, in this sacred space, the hierarchies of the outside world seemed to soften, if only for a brief, blessed moment, as all stood or knelt, equal before the divine. Then a figure emerged from the shadowy sacristy, moving with quiet grace towards the altar. It was the priest, his vestments, though simple by modern standards, imbued with a quiet solemnity, speaking of his sacred office. His voice, when it finally broke the profound silence, was not loud or commanding, but a steady, resonant chant like a river flowing smoothly over ancient stones. Each Latin phrase, though perhaps not fully understood by every parishioner, carried an undeniable power, a rhythmic pulse that seemed to settle into the very heart of the congregation. It was a sound that was ancient and immediate, a bridge between their lived reality and the eternal mysteries.
The focus of this particular morning's custom was the blessing ritual, a cornerstone of their faith, offering solace and a tangible connection to divine grace. As the ritual unfolded, the priest moved among the kneeling figures, his hand raised in benediction. The soft brush of his fingers, laden with holy water, against a forehead or a clasped hand, was not just a physical touch, it was a profound spiritual connection. For many, this was a lifeline, a fragile thread of hope in a world often defined by hardship and uncertainty. The holy water, consecrated with ancient prayers, was believed to cleanse, to protect, to heal, not just the body, but the spirit. It was a tangible symbol of divine favor, a visible manifestation of blessings sought and received. Imagine the quiet desperation, the silent prayers whispered into clasped, calloused hands. A mother, perhaps, praying for the recovery of a feverish child, her heart a fragile vessel of hope and fear. A farmer, his brow furrowed with worry over a blighted crop, seeking divine intercession for rain. An elder, weary from a lifetime of toil, seeking peace and acceptance as their own journey neared the end. In those moments, the blessing wasn't just a formality. It was a profound act of vulnerability and faith, a surrender to a power greater than themselves. The act of receiving the blessing, simple as it was,
carried the weight of their deepest yearnings, their unspoken pleas echoing in the quietude of the ancient church. The fragrance of burning incense, released from the swinging censer, began to fill the air, a delicate, ethereal mist that curled upwards towards the vaulted ceiling, carrying with it the silent prayers of the faithful. It was a scent that cleansed and purified, a sensory anchor to the spiritual realm, drawing the senses further inward. The visual poetry of the swirling smoke, illuminated by the candlelight, was itself a meditative dance, encouraging the mind to drift, to release its earthly tether. The repetitive chants of the priest, the gentle swaying of the censer, the quiet breaths of the congregation, all combined to create a hypnotic rhythm, a lullaby of devotion that settled deep within the soul. This ritual, seemingly simple, was a powerful cornerstone of their daily lives. It represented the constant interplay between their earthly existence and their deep spiritual convictions. In a world where illness could strike without warning, where famines could decimate entire villages, and where the forces of nature often felt overwhelming, faith provided a framework for resilience. The blessing ritual was a communal act of defiance against despair, a collective affirmation of hope, a shared belief that even in the darkest valleys, a divine light watched over them. It cemented their bond not only with the divine, but also with each other, creating a shared experience of vulnerability and strength. As the ritual drew to a gentle close, a profound serenity settled over the congregation. The flickering candlelight seemed softer. The ancient stones exhaled a deeper calm. There was no sudden rush, no hurried departure. Instead, a quiet lingering, as if each soul savored the last vestiges of the sacred peace. The lines of worry on some faces seemed to soften, replaced by a quiet acceptance. The sense of an unseen presence, a benevolent gaze seemed to linger in the air, comforting and reassuring. This was not a moment of grand epiphany, but a gentle, steady infusion of tranquility, a quiet strengthening of the spirit for the day ahead. The morning light, now a little brighter, filtered through the windows, painting the dust motes with a richer glow. The scent of incense slowly faded, replaced by the crisp freshness of the emerging day. Parishioners rose from their knees, their movements slow and deliberate, their hearts perhaps a little lighter, their spirits a little more settled. They exchanged quiet nods, subtle smiles, a shared understanding passing between them that needed no words. This collective experience, this shared custom of faith, had woven them closer together, a silent bond forged in the crucible of devotion. As they slowly began to make their way out of the church, back into the nascent light of the medieval morning, the sense of peace remained, a delicate aura around them. The sounds of the waking village, a distant rooster crow, the faint creak of a cart, seemed to welcome them back, not with jarring clamor, but with a gentle embrace. The blessing ritual had not only touched their spirits, but had also transformed the very atmosphere around them, imbuing the ordinary morning with a whisper of the extraordinary. It was a testament to how profoundly custom shaped their perception of the world, making the sacred a palpable part of their everyday reality. As the soft, lingering echoes of the morning blessing faded, replaced by the gentle stirring of the medieval day, our journey now quietly shifts. Imagine a subtle, almost imperceptible transition, as if a gentle breeze is carrying us across rolling hills, past ancient forests, away from the hollowed stones of the church, and into the heart of the countryside. The air here tastes different, not of incense and beeswax, but of rich, damp earth after a night's tender rain, a fragrance that speaks of life, growth, and the ceaseless turning of seasons. This is the realm of the peasant, a world where life's rhythms were dictated by the sun, the soil, and the timeless dance of nature. The village, a cluster of humble thatched-roof cottages huddled together like sleeping animals, emerged from the morning mists, wrapped in almost ethereal stillness. Smoke, thin and blue, began to curl lazily from stone chimneys, a silent testament to rekindled hearths and the promise of a warm, simple meal. A distant rooster's crow, clear and insistent, cut through the quiet, quickly followed by the contented bleating of sheep and the lowing of cattle, a rustic symphony of awakening. These weren't jarring noises, but rather the comforting, familiar sounds of life unfolding at its own deliberate pace, each sound a note in the grand, ancient song of the countryside. Even the birds, unseen in the awakening trees, began their gentle chorus, a soft, interwoven tapestry of chirps and trills that invited the mind to relax and simply be. Life for the medieval peasant was intimately woven with the land, a connection so profound it transcended mere livelihood. It was their very identity. Their customs weren't born of elaborate decrees or grand ceremonies, but from the raw necessity of survival, shaped by generations of practical wisdom passed down through the ages. Every act, from preparing the soil to harvesting the bounty, was imbued with a deep, almost spiritual reverence for the natural world that sustained them. They understood, with a humility born of direct experience, that they were but a small part of a much larger, interconnected system. Their lives were a continuous dialogue with the earth, a whispered conversation of effort and reward, struggle and sustenance. Their clothing, simple and functional, was a direct reflection of this bond with the land. Imagine rough-spun woolen tunics in muted shades of earth brown, forest green, or undyed gray, perhaps softened over years of wear and countless washes in the cold stream. For women, long practical dresses of coarse linen or wool, often layered for warmth, their heads sometimes covered with simple wimples or scarves to protect from sun and wind. These were not garments of display, but garments of purpose, sturdy, durable, designed to withstand the rigors of field labor and the unpredictable whims of the weather. There was a quiet beauty in their simplicity, a raw honesty that spoke volumes about a life unburdened by artifice. Each stitch, each fold, was a testament to utility, a humble elegance born of necessity. The daily customs of peasant life were a rhythmic ballet of labor and rest, perfectly attuned to the sun's journey across the sky. Their day began before dawn, with the first light, and ended with the last fading glow of twilight. Their meals, humble but hearty, were communal affairs, often shared around a simple wooden table, the air thick with the aroma of freshly baked bread and simmering stew. These weren't just times for sustenance, they were moments of connection, of shared stories, of the quiet strengthening of family and community bonds. The simple act of breaking bread together became a ritual of gratitude, a recognition of the hard-won blessings from the land. One of the most profound customs revolved around the agricultural calendar, a silent symphony of planting, tending, and harvesting that dictated their very existence. Spring brought the custom of blessing the seeds, a small, hopeful ceremony where a handful of grains might be sprinkled with holy water, or a silent prayer whispered over the furrows before sowing. This wasn't merely superstition, it was an acknowledgment of their utter dependence on forces beyond their control, a gentle plea to the heavens for a bountiful yield. The air during these times would hum with a quiet anticipation, a blend of anxiety and hope, as the very future of their lives lay buried beneath the awakening earth.
Summer unfolded with the custom of tending the fields, a slow, patient dance under the sun. Imagine the rhythmic swing of scythes through tall grass, the steady thud of hoes breaking stubborn soil, the quiet murmur of voices as villagers worked side by side. These were customs of perseverance, of unwavering diligence. Even the breaks from labor, brief moments under the shade of an ancient oak, became customs of shared water, shared laughter, and quiet camaraderie, strengthening the invisible threads that bound them as a community. The very sweat on their brows, the ache in their muscles, became a part of the ritual, a testament to their unwavering commitment to the land. Then came the harvest, the culmination of months of toil, and with it a kaleidoscope of customs celebrating abundance and gratitude. The reapers would move through the fields like a slow, deliberate wave, their sickles flashing in the sunlight, gathering the golden bounty. This was often the communal effort, a time when the entire village came together, singing simple folk songs as they worked, their voices carrying on the gentle breeze. The custom of the last sheaf was particularly poignant. Often the final bundle of grain was adorned with ribbons and carried back to the village with joyful celebration, a symbolic representation of the earth's generosity. It was a moment of profound relief, a collective sigh of contentment as the granaries began to fill, signaling survival through another winter. Beyond the fields, other customs marked their simple lives. The custom of storytelling, often around a flickering hearth on long winter nights, kept history and folklore alive. Grandparents, their voices raspy with age and wisdom, would spin tales of old heroes, mischievous spirits, and moral lessons, their words weaving pictures in the minds of the young. These weren't just entertainment, they were vital transmissions of cultural identity, lessons in ethics, and a way to connect generations. The warmth of the fire, the hushed voices, and the shared sense of wonder all contributed to a soothing, almost hypnotic atmosphere, perfect for drifting minds.
The custom of community celebrations, often tied to religious feast days or seasonal milestones, provided much-needed respite and joyous connection. Though simple compared to noble feasts, these were moments of vibrant life, perhaps a spontaneous dance around a village green, the sound of a simple pipe or drum, or a shared meal where everyone brought what they could. There was no grandeur, but immense heart. These customs reinforced the bonds of belonging, reminding each individual that they were part of something larger, a collective spirit that weathered hardship and celebrated joy together. The laughter, the shared food, the collective sense of ease, these were the threads of happiness woven into the tough fabric of their existence. Even the smallest daily acts were imbued with custom. The careful drawing of water from the communal well, a time for quiet greetings and a brief exchange of news. The tending of the small vegetable patch outside each cottage, a custom of nurturing and self-reliance. The mending of clothes by candlelight, a patient ritual of resourcefulness. These quiet, repetitive actions, performed with a methodical simplicity, created a sense of order and predictability in their lives, a comforting rhythm that settled the mind. They taught patience, resilience, and an appreciation for the simple necessities of life. In the realm of personal care, customs were equally practical. Bathing, though perhaps less frequent than in noble courts, was often a communal activity in a nearby stream or lake during warmer months, or in a large wooden tub by the fire in winter. It was a custom of cleansing and fellowship, stripped of ostentation. The custom of simple remedies, passed down from village healer to family member, relied on herbs and ancient knowledge of the natural world, a quiet testament to their resourcefulness and their deep trust in the earth's healing powers. There was a raw honesty to these practices, a pragmatic beauty that spoke of a life lived close to the land, unadorned and unpretentious. The sheer simplicity and practicality of their customs, rooted deeply in the soil and the cycles of nature, made them profoundly distinct. They represented a different kind of wealth, not of gold or silk, but of community, resilience, and an unwavering connection to the source of life itself. These weren't customs designed to impress, but to sustain. They spoke of humble endurance, of quiet gratitude, and of a profound harmony with the very elements that shaped their world. There was a deep, quiet wisdom in their repetitive nature, a meditative quality to their unhurried execution.
As the earthy fragrance of the peasant fields gently recedes, our journey now turns to a quieter, more profound aspect of medieval life, the customs surrounding the ultimate departure. This transition is seamless, a whisper carried on an unseen breeze, drawing us from the sun-drenched vibrancy of daily toil to the hushed, sacred stillness of a farewell ritual. Imagine the light dimming softly, not into darkness, but into a luminous twilight, where solemnity and serene acceptance intertwine, painting the world with shades of contemplative grace. The setting for this custom is often the hushed interior of the village church, though the air no longer carries the vibrant hope of morning blessings, but a different kind of reverence. Instead of the scent of fresh beeswax and rising incense, there's a subtle, almost imperceptible fragrance of quiet dignity, perhaps mingled with the faint sweet scent of dried herbs or the cool, clean smell of ancient stone.
The air itself feels weighted with a gentle stillness, as if the very breath of the world has paused in respectful observance. Sunlight, if present, filters through the stained glass windows in softened, muted hues, casting patterns that seem to melt into the shadows, never sharp or intrusive. This is a place where earthly sorrow meets heavenly promise, not with a clash, but with a tranquil embrace. Then a sound begins to unfurl, carrying on the still air like a deep velvet sigh. It is the tolling of the church bell, not the joyous peal of a Sunday morning, but a slow, mournful, yet profoundly peaceful chime. Each resonant clang travels far, a wave of profound sorrow and gentle acceptance washing over the silent village. The sound is a tangible presence, a heavy drape of sound that descends with a quiet majesty, inviting all to pause, to listen, to acknowledge the unyielding rhythm of life and death. It echoes across the fields, through the forest, a somber lullaby that speaks of the soul's quiet journey, an ancient melody that has marked countless departures through the centuries, offering a collective comfort in its unchanging cadence. Within the sacred space, or perhaps in the quiet procession moving towards the hallowed ground, there's an atmosphere of profound solemnity. This is not marked by the tumultuous outburst of loud wails or the frantic clamor of unrestrained grief. Instead, a deep, pervasive quietude holds sway, broken only by the occasional choked sob, a single tear tracing a path down a weathered cheek, or the subtle, almost inaudible sniffle of kempt sorrow. The grief is palpable, a heavy cloak woven from threads of love and loss, but it is a grief contained, dignified, held within the quiet strength of acceptance. Each heavy step taken by the mourners on the worn path or the cold stone floor resonates with a measured pace, a deliberate movement that speaks of a shared burden carried with quiet resolve. The medieval worldview embraced death not as a final, absolute end, but as a natural, inevitable transition, the quiet turning of a page in the grand book of existence. This custom of farewell was a testament to that enduring belief, a solemn acknowledgement of the earthly journey's completion and the peaceful beginning of another, unseen voyage. The focus was less on the pain of separation and more on the serene passage of the soul, a quiet release from the mortal coil into the embrace of the eternal. The solemnity of the ritual underscored the profound significance of this journey, preparing both the departed for their spiritual ascent and the living for their continued earthly pilgrimage with renewed hope. Within the silent depths of this ritual, there lay a profound emphasis on faith in the afterlife. For the medieval mind, the boundary between life and death was permeable, not a stark, impenetrable wall. The journey of the soul was a tangible concept, guided by prayers, blessings, and the unwavering belief in divine grace. The priest's gentle incantations, though whispered low, were not merely words. They were ethereal bridges, believed to guide the soul through the unseen realms. The lighting of candles, often placed around the departed, served as beacons, symbolic of eternal light dispelling the shadows of death, illuminating the path to a peaceful rest beyond the earthly veil. This acceptance of death as a beginning rather than an end imbued the entire custom with a unique sense of tranquility. It was a time for quiet reflection, for remembering the life lived, and for reaffirming the communal hope for a reunion in the celestial realm. There was a pervasive sense that the deceased was not truly gone, but merely transformed, embarking on a different kind of journey. This perspective softened the sharp edges of grief, transforming raw sorrow into a more contemplative sadness, imbued with the quiet strength of enduring faith. The air, though heavy, was not stagnant. It pulsed with a gentle, hopeful current, a quiet anticipation of reunion. The revolving cycle of life was a concept deeply embedded in their understanding, finding its poignant expression in these customs of departure. Just as the seasons turned from vibrant spring to bountiful summer, then to the quiet slumber of winter, so too did human life follow its destined course. The laying to rest of a body was akin to planting a seed in the earth, with the unwavering belief that a new form of life, spiritual and eternal, would blossom from it. This cyclical view fostered a profound acceptance of mortality, not as a tragedy, but as an integral, beautiful part of the cosmic design. The rustle of leaves, the flow of a river, the return of the sun each day, all were gentle reminders of life's perpetual motion, a grand, quiet dance of endless renewal. Furthermore, these rituals were powerful demonstrations of community solidarity in grief. In a world where individual survival was often precarious, the strength of the collective was paramount. A death in the village was not just a personal loss, it was a communal event, a ripple in the shared fabric of their lives. The presence of neighbors gathering in silent support, sharing the weight of sorrow through their quiet attendance and shared prayers, was a custom of profound human connection. There was no need for elaborate speeches or performative displays. The simple act of being there, shoulder to shoulder, hearts united in quiet sympathy, spoke volumes. It was a tangible manifestation of shared humanity, a solemn understanding that no one faced the great unknown alone. The simplicity of these customs, devoid of ostentation, served to underscore their profound spiritual core. There were no extravagant displays of wealth or power. Instead, focus remained on the humble dignity of the human soul and its journey. The adornments were natural, simple flowers picked from the fields, perhaps a sprig of rosemary for remembrance, or ivy symbolizing eternal life. This stark simplicity lent an authentic beauty to the proceedings, reflecting a world that valued spiritual purity over material show. The very air seemed to breathe with a quiet grace, inviting the mind to look beyond the immediate and contemplate the timeless. Consider the gentle passage, often accompanied by the quiet hum of chants or the soft murmur of prayers, as the departed was carried to their final resting place. The burial ground, often adjacent to the church, was not a place of dread, but a sacred garden, where generations lay interred, waiting for the great awakening. The act of placing the body into the earth was performed with a tender reverence, a final act of care and respect. It was a custom that reaffirmed their deep connection to the land, not only in life, but in death as well, a return to the very soil from which they had sprung. Even the silence was a custom here, a profound, eloquent silence that allowed space for individual reflection and collective peace. It was a silence filled not with emptiness, but with the quiet contemplation of eternity, with unspoken prayers and with the gentle whispers of memory. This shared silence became a powerful bond, a collective moment of spiritual connection that transcended the spoken word, creating a tapestry of unspoken understanding and empathy. It was a silence that soothed, that accepted, and that ultimately brought a deep sense of tranquil repose to all present. This custom of dignified farewell was not meant to instill fear, but rather to impart a sense of comfort and continuity. It spoke of a profound wisdom, of humanity's ancient understanding that life's journey encompasses both joy and sorrow, arrival and departure. It was a gentle reminder that even in loss there is peace, even in ending there is a promise of new beginnings. The acceptance of the inevitable, framed within the unwavering embrace of faith and community, allowed medieval souls to navigate the most profound human experience with a quiet fortitude, a serene spirit, and a tranquil hope that transcended the earthly realm. The quiet dignity of these customs offers a window into a belief system that allowed for profound acceptance, turning sorrow into a gentle, flowing river of enduring faith.
From the solemn quietude of the burial ground, where earth met eternal faith, our journey now gracefully ascends. We leave behind the simple, steadfast rhythms of peasant life, the rough woolens and the scent of damp soil, to be gently carried as if on a current of unseen silken air into a different sphere of existence. Imagine the atmosphere subtly shifting, growing crisper, filled not with the earthy honesty of the fields, but with faint, lingering notes of rosewater and the polished gleam of ancient oak. We are now within the profound embrace of a castle, a magnificent structure of formidable stone, rising from the landscape like a silent, enduring Titan, its very presence a testament to centuries of power and refined living. The imposing walls, thick and cold, whisper tales of countless generations, their rugged surfaces softened by the mellow glow of countless beeswax candles flickering within. This warm, golden embrace spills from narrow, arched windows, transforming the formidable fortress into a beacon of subdued splendor against the encroaching twilight. Inside, the sheer vastness of the halls is tempered by an almost ethereal quietude, where every sound is absorbed, softened, allowing only the most delicate auditory textures to gently emerge. The air, rich with history, seems to hum with a refined stillness,
as if the very breath of time has slowed its pace within these hallowed stones. A subtle melodic sound begins to drift through the grand echoing chambers, a resonance unlike the honest bleating of sheep or the somber tolling of a church bell. It is the enchanting murmur of a harp, its strings plucked with exquisite precision, weaving a tapestry of notes that shimmer and fall like moonlight on a tranquil pond. The music is not boisterous or demanding, but exquisitely serene, a gentle current that flows through the very marrow of the castle, inviting relaxation and deep contemplation. Its notes resonate with a timeless grace, a soft whisper of beauty that seems to float effortlessly through the vast stone halls, soothing every corner of the mind, a perfect companion to the quiet majesty of the setting. This noble dwelling is a world unto itself, governed by a distinct set of customs that stood in sharp contrast to the rustic simplicity of the common folk. Here, life was an intricate dance of elegance and formality, where every gesture, every interaction was a meticulously choreographed movement in a grand perpetual play. These customs, unlike the practical necessities that shaped peasant life, were often born of status, prestige, and the subtle, unspoken language of power. They were designed to distinguish, to elevate, to affirm the established hierarchy with every graceful turn and whispered word, forming an invisible yet ironclad framework for aristocratic existence. Observe the attire, for it is a profound testament to this difference. Gone are the rough woolens and humble linens, replaced by fabrics that speak a language of sheer opulence. Behold the rich shimmer of silk, painstakingly imported from distant, exotic lands. The deep, luxurious pile of velvet, absorbing the candlelight into its sumptuous depths, creating pools of shadow and light. And the intricate raised patterns of brocade, woven with threads of genuine gold and silver, catching the illumination like scattered jewels. Colors are vibrant, rare, and deeply symbolic. Royal blues that mirror the deepest ocean, crimson reds that blaze like a sunset, deep purples that whisper of imperial power. Dyes painstakingly extracted from exotic plants or precious sea creatures, their very existence proclaiming the wearer's immense wealth and exclusive privilege. Imagine a noble lady, perhaps, as she glides through a hall, her gown a cascade of heavy fabric, its train sweeping gracefully behind her like a royal tide, a silent whisper of her passage. Her sleeves, wide and flowing, might touch the ground, an eloquent, unspoken declaration that her hands are unaccustomed to toil, reserved for more delicate pursuits. A lord standing tall and poised wears a tunic of richly embroidered brocade, his cloak lined with the soft, luminous fur of ermine or sable. His posture effortlessly conveys an innate sense of authority and effortless command. These garments are not merely clothes to shield from the elements or for modesty. They are living tapestries of wealth, exquisite taste, and undeniable social standing. Meticulously crafted by skilled artisans, each stitch a testament to hours of devoted labor and the unparalleled rarity of their materials. Beyond the visual splendor, The customs of communication and deportment among the nobility were a finely tuned art form, honed over generations. Every bow, every curtsy, every subtle tilt of the head carried layers of unspoken meaning, a silent dialogue understood only by those initiated into its delicate nuances. The precise way one offered a hand, the exact angle of a greeting, the appropriate moment to speak, or more importantly, to remain silent. These were all governed by an invisible rule book learned from the earliest moments of childhood. Their speech, too, was often more refined, articulated with a deliberate precision, each word carefully chosen, reflecting a world where nuance, subtlety, and the implied message were paramount. There was a deliberate grace in their movements, an economy of gesture that spoke volumes about self-control and an innate, cultivated refinement. These subtle rules extended to every aspect of their daily existence, weaving themselves into the very fabric of aristocratic life. The elaborate rituals surrounding meals, though perhaps less public than grand banquets, were still a testament to order and inherent formality. Consider the meticulous placement of silverware, each piece an artwork in itself, the precise pouring of wine into shimmering goblets, and the quiet efficiency of the servants moving like silent shadows, anticipating every need, all contributed to an atmosphere of controlled elegance. Even the way food was consumed, with refined manners and careful conversation, stood in contrast to the more communal, perhaps less formal eating habits of the peasantry. It was a daily, unwavering performance of decorum, reinforcing the boundaries and distinctions within their highly stratified society, a quiet declaration of their elevated place. Yet beneath this polished exterior, behind the shimmering silks and the measured gestures, lay hidden burdens and quiet responsibilities. The life of a noble was not merely one of opulent leisure. It was perpetually steeped in complex political maneuvering, strategic alliances forged through marriage, and the constant, vigilant awareness of maintaining one's lineage and power. Customs dictated not just how they presented themselves outwardly, but also how they navigated treacherous court intrigues, arranged unions of convenience rather than love, and managed vast, sprawling estates with an iron, though often gloved, hand. The immense weight of ancestral expectations, the relentless pressure to produce a suitable heir, the delicate balance of loyalty and ambition within their own families and among their peers, these were the unseen threads woven inextricably into the seemingly luxurious fabric of their lives, often tighter than any silken girdle. The very beauty of their refinement, while undoubtedly enchanting, was often accompanied by a certain profound isolation. While peasants found camaraderie in shared labor and communal celebrations, the nobility often existed in a more insulated world, their interactions dictated by rigid protocol and cold political necessity rather than genuine affection. Their smiles, though gracious and practiced, might carefully hide carefully guarded thoughts or unspoken agendas. This refined existence, while offering unparalleled comfort and privilege, also brought with it a distinct kind of solitude, a quiet awareness of the perpetual performance demanded by their elevated station, a life lived constantly under the gaze of others. The castle itself, a silent sentinel of their world, profoundly embodies this blend of exquisite elegance and inherent burden. Its thick stone walls, while providing impregnable protection from external threats, also served as a subtle yet inescapable prison of expectation and unyielding duty. The warmth of the grand hearths, though inviting, might illuminate faces troubled by strategic decisions concerning land or alliances, or the quiet anxieties of maintaining a dynasty through turbulent times. The echoing silence of the long corridors, broken only by the gentle rustle of a passing gown or the soft, measured footsteps of a diligent guard, could feel both comforting in its vastness and profoundly isolating in its quietude. It was a place where history breathed in every cold stone, where the weight of the past shaped the present with an unyielding, almost palpable hand. Consider the vivid contrast with the rough-hewn simplicity of the peasant's life as seen in the preceding chapters, where the peasant's customs were born of direct, unvarnished interaction with the earth and its raw elements. The noble's customs emerged from the intricate, delicate structures of human power and societal aspiration. Both were valid. Both were essential components of the medieval world, yet they diverged dramatically, like two separate rivers flowing from the same ancient, distant source, each carving its own unique path through the landscape of time. The peasant found a profound sense of freedom in resilience and collective effort, a humble dignity in honest toil. The noble, by contrast, sought definition in lineage, impeccable decorum, and the careful, artful cultivation of appearance, a subtle, daily performance of their inherent worth. The elegance of the noble's life was not an accidental occurrence. It was a meticulous construction, a testament to unparalleled artistry and unwavering aspiration. From the precise cut of a sleeve to the carefully modulated tone of a voice, every detail was a deliberate, conscious choice, reinforcing their undisputed place at the apex of the social pyramid. It was a world where aesthetics and etiquette intertwined seamlessly, where beauty was a tangible form of currency, and where grace was an ultimate measure of worth. Yet it was a grace that often came with its own unique set of chains, unseen but ever present, binding them to a life of strict adherence to unwritten rules, yet without a go-to. This intricate dance of custom shaped their very souls, etching patterns of sophistication and constraint upon their spirits.
From the grand, silent halls of the noble castle, where elegance was a way of life, our journey now softly shifts into a particular realm of aristocratic custom, the royal ball. This isn't a transition into a scene of boisterous revelry or dramatic spectacle. Instead, imagine stepping into a vast, illuminated chamber, not with a jolt, but as if passing through a veil of gossamer mist. The air here shimmers with a different kind of light, less harsh than daylight,
more akin to the diffused glow of 1,000 dreams. This is a space transformed by the subtle alchemy of candlelight and hushed expectation, a stage set for a different kind of drama, one woven from silent glances and whispered words. The grand ballroom, a cavernous space within the castle's heart, pulses with a gentle golden light. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of beeswax candles flicker in sconces along the walls, in magnificent chandeliers suspended from the vaulted ceilings, and on polished silver candelabras adorning every surface. Their collective glow casts a warm, soft luminescence, making shadows dance and giving every surface a liquid sheen. The air, enriched by the slow burning of the wax, carries a delicate sweet fragrance, mingling with the subtle perfumes worn by the noble guests, perhaps faint notes of rose, lavender, or something more exotic from distant lands. Every corner of the vast room seems to breathe with a serene, almost meditative energy, inviting the eye to wander, yet never to rush. A quiet, enchanting music fills the chamber, not a blaring cannon-fare, but a sophisticated tapestry of sound woven by the delicate plucking of lutes and harps, the melancholic sweetness of viols, and the soft, breathy sigh of flutes. This is music designed not for energetic dancing, but for graceful movement, for elegant conversation, for the gentle unfolding of social rituals. Its melodies are intricate, flowing like a tranquil river, carrying the listener along on its serene current. Each note is a pearly drop, falling softly into the vastness of the hall, creating an atmosphere of refined harmony that settles deep within the soul, urging the mind to quietude. Into this luminous, harmonious space glide the noble ladies, transformed into ethereal figures by their magnificent gowns. Their dresses, crafted from the finest silk, velvet, and brocade, shimmer under the candlelight, cascades of fabric that seem to move with a liquid grace. Hues of deep emerald, sapphire blue, ruby red, and shimmering gold drape their forms, colors that speak not only of wealth, but also of the artistry of master dyers. Their sleeves, wide and flowing, often extend to touch the ground, or are intricately embellished with pearls and embroidery, a delicate flourish that underscores their elevated status. Every movement is a slow, deliberate waltz of fabric, a whisper of luxury against the polished stone floors. Accompanying them are the noble gentlemen, equally resplendent in their attire. Their tunics and doublets, often of rich velvet or embroidered wool, boast intricate patterns, perhaps emblazoned with their family crests or motifs of chivalry. Their cloaks, lined with luxurious furs like sable or ermine, drape with an imposing elegance. Each accessory, from the jeweled belt to the subtly gleaming rings on their fingers, speaks of lineage and carefully accumulated wealth. They are not merely dressed, they are adorned, presented, living embodiments of their noble houses. But this grand assembly is more than a display of sartorial splendor. It is a silent stage, a meticulously arranged tableau, where every seemingly casual gesture, every shared glance holds profound significance. The atmosphere, while outwardly serene, is subtly charged with unspoken intentions and carefully calibrated interactions. This is a realm where social status is not merely declared, but performed, where relationships are not forged with loud pronouncements, but with the delicate artistry of nonverbal communication. Each quiet curtsy, each deferential bow, each hand offered or withheld forms part of a complex, unwritten script understood by all participants. Observe the movements of those within this elegant custom. There are no hurried strides, no clumsy gestures. Instead, every step is measured, every turn of the head deliberate. When a lady extends her hand for a dance, it is done with exquisite poise, her fingers delicate as spun glass. When a lord bows, the angle of his inclination speaks volumes about respect or subtle condescension. Even the dances themselves are not frantic expressions of joy, but graceful, measured steps, pavans and galliards, where partners move with an almost hypnotic symmetry. Their movements are like a slow-motion ballet, each participant a trained dancer in the intricate choreography of court life, where every glide and pivot is an unspoken declaration. The raising of a wine goblet becomes a small ritual in itself. A silver chalice, perhaps intricately engraved, is lifted with a deliberate slowness, reflecting the candlelight like liquid gold. The very act of bringing it to the lips, the subtle nod of acknowledgement to a fellow guest, is a refined gesture, an unhurried moment to contemplate the richness of the wine and the delicate balance of social interaction. There's no boisterous clinking or hurried gulps. Instead, a quiet, almost reverent appreciation of the moment. Each sip a pause in the silent dialogue.
Within this luminous space, the true heart of this custom often lies in the whispered conversations and the subtle glances. Voices are kept low, hushed, never rising above the gentle swell of the music. A lord might lean in conspiratorially to a trusted peer, his words barely audible, yet weighty with implication. A lady might exchange a fleeting, knowing look across the room, a silent message passing between eyes that have seen much. These aren't idle pleasantries. These are moments where alliances are quietly affirmed, where political strategies are subtly initiated, where reputations are delicately shaped, or perhaps just as delicately undermined. The air itself seems to thicken with these unspoken currents, a rich tapestry of intrigue woven from the softest threads of human interaction. Consider the depth of artistry in social diplomacy that these customs demanded. A noble could not afford to be gauche, to misinterpret a gesture, or to speak out of turn. Their very survival, their family's standing, could depend on their ability to navigate this intricate web of unwritten rules. It was an education not taught in books, but absorbed through observation, imitation, and countless subtle corrections from watchful tutors and vigilant parents. The elegance was not innate.
It was cultivated, a lifetime of careful practice, perfecting the art of being effortlessly aristocratic. Every refined gesture, every knowing silence was a brushstroke in the masterpiece of their social identity. These gatherings were far more than mere entertainment. They were crucibles of power, silent battlegrounds where status was affirmed and destinies subtly nudged. A chance encounter on the dance floor could lead to a strategic marriage alliance, binding two powerful families. A carefully timed compliment could open doors to patronage. A fleeting, almost imperceptible snub could send a clear, devastating message. This was the true nature of the royal ball. A grand, silent game of chess, played with exquisite pieces, where the stakes were often nothing less than influence, wealth, and survival. The glittering surface hid a profound depth of calculation and careful design. Each movement a delicate balance of risk and reward. Even the blossoming of romantic narratives unfolded within this meticulously constrained environment. A stolen glance across a crowded hall, a hand lingering, perhaps a fraction of a second too long during a dance, a whispered word exchanged in the shadows of an ornate archway. These were the subtle embers from which the fires of courtly love might ignite. These relationships, often bound by duty and expectation, found their clandestine expressions in the quiet spaces between formalities, in the unspoken language understood by hearts yearning for connection amidst the structured elegance. The very constraints of their world amplified the intensity of these fleeting moments, making each secret glance a universe of unspoken passion. The hush of the ballroom, therefore, was not empty. It was filled with the soft rustle of silk, the gentle echo of lute strings, and the barely audible murmur of voices, and the profound silent throb of ambition, longing, and subtle power plays. It was a space where the weight of history and the fluidity of human ambition merged, creating an atmosphere that was both grand and intimately personal, vast and yet focused on the smallest, most telling details. This profound quietude allowed the subtle undercurrents of the court to become perceptible, each whisper a thread in a larger, unseen narrative. This custom of the royal ball, with its dazzling display and underlying complexities, truly captures the essence of aristocratic life. It demonstrates how even leisure, even entertainment, was inextricably linked to power, strategy, and the perpetual performance of one's elevated role. It was a world where beauty was a tool, grace a weapon, and silence often spoke louder than any declaration. The refinement was not simply an aesthetic choice. It was a necessary armor, protecting against a world of constant scrutiny and intense competition. From the hushed grandeur of the royal ball, where silks rustled and whispers floated like unseen currents, our journey now glides toward a singular, almost whimsical detail of medieval aristocratic custom. We leave behind the sweeping vistas of grand halls and turn our gaze to something smaller, more intimate, yet profoundly resonant, a peculiar, captivating piece of footwear. Imagine narrowing your focus, as if drawing nearer to a treasured ancient artifact displayed in a softly lit chamber, its very form a silent storyteller from a bygone age. This is the realm of the poulaines, shoes that transcended mere utility to become extraordinary declarations of status and a fascinating window into the subtle vanity of a distant era. The poulaine, or Krakow, as it was sometimes known, was a shoe unlike any other, a true marvel of medieval fashion that bordered on the fantastical. Its defining feature was an elongated, pointed toe, stretching far beyond the natural confines of the foot. These points were not merely decorative, they were exaggerated, often absurdly so, curving upwards, sometimes even extending to lengths that defied practical movement. Imagine a slipper of fine leather or rich velvet, its toe culminating in a slender, almost delicate spire extending perhaps a foot, even 2 feet beyond the wearer's foot. For the most fashionable and exalted members of the nobility, these points could reach astonishing lengths, sometimes so extreme that they had to be tied with fine cords or delicate chains to the wearer's knee to prevent tripping or simply to allow for any semblance of movement. Picture these remarkable shoes now, not on a dusty museum display, but as they truly were, worn by proud nobles, their surfaces gleam with the subtle sheen of meticulously cared-for leather, often dyed in rich, deep hues of crimson, sapphire, or forest green. Some were crafted from sumptuous velvet, embroidered with silken threads or even tiny pearls, catching the flickering candlelight like scattered constellations. The very materials spoke of immense wealth, of master craftsmen dedicating hours to their creation, and of rare exotic dyes procured from distant lands. These shoes were never designed for the muddy paths of a peasant village or the rough terrain of a battlefield. They were creatures of the polished castle floor, the velvet carpet, the smooth stone courtyard, whispering tales of lives lived far removed from manual labor. The true significance of the poulaines lay not in their comfort or practicality, but in their powerful, silent declaration of social status. This was a custom where the length of one's shoe toe was a direct, unmistakable visual barometer of one's place in the rigid medieval hierarchy. The longer the point, the higher the wearer's rank. A common artisan might wear a short, modest point, if any. A squire or minor noble might sport a moderate length. But a duke, a prince, or even the king himself would wear poulaines of an almost comical yet profoundly prestigious length. So long they often required the aforementioned delicate chains to their knees to prevent entanglement. They were a walking, shimmering testament to one's lineage, one's power, and one's undeniable removal from any form of physical toil. The very impracticality of these shoes was precisely their point, a subtle language of privilege and idleness. One could not possibly farm, ride into battle, or even walk quickly in such footwear. They were a physical manifestation of leisure, a bold assertion that the wearer's hands and feet were reserved for courtly dances, ceremonial processions, or perhaps simply idleness. To wear poulaines was to declare without uttering a single word, "My status elevates me above manual labor. My wealth allows me to wear something so gloriously impractical." This was the quiet yet resonant boast whispered by every elongated toe. Imagine the subtle sound these shoes made as their wearer moved through the echoing halls of a castle. Not the heavy thud of a peasant's boot, or the decisive click of a soldier's greave, but a distinct, gentle scuffing and rustling. The long pointed toes, perhaps dragging lightly on the polished marble or stone, would create a soft, continuous, lisping or shuffling sound, a delicate, almost musical whisper of opulence. On a tiled floor, perhaps a faint, elegant scrape, like the soft glide of a quill over parchment. This subtle auditory signature was yet another layer of their distinctive custom, a background melody to the grand performance of aristocratic life, a gentle reminder of the wearer's elevated place in the social symphony.
This custom of the poulain invites us to a deeper contemplation of how human beings use material possessions to assert power and identity. It's a fascinating, almost whimsical example of how outward appearance, seemingly frivolous, can be imbued with profound symbolic meaning. These shoes weren't merely fashion trends. They were carefully chosen, often painstakingly crafted, expressions of a deep-seated human need to define oneself, to distinguish oneself, and to project one's standing in a highly structured world. They serve as a quiet mirror, reflecting the sometimes strange, yet utterly human ways we seek validation and recognition through the objects we adorn ourselves with. The peculiar beauty of the poulains lies in their very exaggeration, their defiant impracticality. They were a visual spectacle, designed to catch the eye and provoke admiration, or perhaps silent envy. There was an artistry in their construction, a dedication to aesthetic form over function that speaks to a certain kind of luxury decadence. Yet beyond the immediate visual impact, they also hint at the futility of such extreme displays. Like many fleeting symbols of power, the poulain's reign was relatively brief, eventually falling out of fashion, replaced by other, equally intricate, but perhaps less overtly impractical styles. This reminds us of the ephemeral nature of earthly vanity, how even the grandest statements can eventually fade into the quiet annals of history. This custom subtly reveals the pressures of aristocratic life. To maintain one's position, one had to adhere to these unspoken rules, to participate in this silent game of sartorial one-upmanship. Not wearing poulains of appropriate length might signal a lack of status, a slip in the social graces that could have real consequences. Thus, what appears as a whimsical fashion choice was in fact a deeply entrenched social obligation, a visible marker in the intricate tapestry of courtly life that demanded constant attention and adherence. The subtle burden of upholding appearances often overshadowed personal comfort or practical sense. The allure of the poulains also lay in their inherent exclusivity.
Only those with sufficient wealth, leisure, and social standing could afford or justify wearing them. They were a barrier, a visual demarcation between the privileged and the common, emphasizing the vast chasm that existed between different social strata. The peasants, rooted to the earth, wore sturdy, sensible boots designed for labor. The nobles, elevated by birth, wore these elongated fantasies, their very form mocking the idea of physical exertion. This clear visual distinction reinforced the fundamental power dynamics of medieval society, a silent reminder of who ruled and who served. As we contemplate these unique shoes, let us not judge their impracticality, but rather appreciate their quiet message. They were symbols, potent and clear, of an age where every detail, from a whispered word to the length of a shoe, carried profound weight. They speak of a human desire, timeless and universal, to express identity and status even in the most elaborate and seemingly irrational ways. They remind us that the forms of power may change, but the impulse to display it often finds its expression in fascinating, sometimes bizarre customs. Allow the image of these remarkable shoes to linger in your mind's eye. The rich textures of velvet and leather, the subtle gleam of embroidery, the improbable length of the pointed toe, perhaps delicately tied to a knee. Hear the soft, almost imperceptible scuffing sound as a noble glides through a candlelit hall, a quiet melody of status and leisure. Let this peculiar, elegant symbol from the past gently settle into your thoughts, a reminder of history's subtle whispers. This vision of forgotten vanity, so distinct and yet so human, now softly envelops your consciousness, easing you into a state of deep, undisturbed peace as you drift toward the quiet landscapes of your dreams. Having drifted through the grand spectacle of the royal ball and contemplated the whimsical statement of the poulains, our journey now gently recedes from the glittering performance and turns inward to the very source of such aristocratic splendor. Imagine a subtle shift in the air, from the perfumed grandeur of the ballroom to a more intimate yet equally profound atmosphere. We are transported, not abruptly, but as if a soft, silken thread guides us into the hushed, almost sacred spaces where the very fabric of noble identity was meticulously spun and woven. The textile workshops and embroidery chambers nestled within the quiet confines of a medieval castle. This is not a place of bustling industry or clamorous activity, but a sanctuary of quiet artistry, a realm where patience and precision reign supreme, transforming raw materials into symbols of power and beauty. The air in these chambers is distinct, carrying a clean, subtle scent of fine fibers, perhaps the earthy aroma of raw wool, mingled with the faint, sweet perfume of drying dyes, or the delicate, aged fragrance of seasoned wood from looms and embroidery frames. Sunlight, when it manages to pierce the castle's thick walls, does so softly, filtering through high, narrow windows. These slender shafts of light illuminate countless dust motes, tiny universes dancing in the quiet stillness, giving the impression of ethereal particles of creativity suspended in the very breath of the room. The sounds within are equally subdued, never jarring or loud, but rather a symphony of focused effort. The gentle rhythmic clack-clack of a loom's shuttle passing through warp threads, a sound like a quiet, diligent heart beating steadily. The faint, almost imperceptible swish of a needle pulling a precious silk strand through taut fabric, or the soft snip of shears cutting a priceless piece of brocade. These are not mere noises, but rather the quiet, almost hypnotic music of dedicated hands at work, a lullaby of meticulous creation, unfolding with serene patience. Here, the raw materials themselves are a testament to luxury and global connection, embodying immense wealth and painstaking effort. Behold the shimmering cascade of silk, its touch cool and smooth against the fingertips, its surface catching the light with an almost liquid grace, revealing a myriad of subtle, shifting hues even within a single, delicate thread. This precious fiber, having journeyed from distant lands along perilous, myth-laden trade routes, was more than just cloth. It was a whisper of exotic mystery, a tangible symbol of immense wealth, far-reaching influence, and cosmopolitan reach, connecting this quiet chamber to empires across vast oceans. See also the deep, plush richness of velvet, its thick pile absorbing light, creating exquisite shadows that lended an almost sculptural quality. A fabric so profoundly tactile it invites the softest, most lingering touch. And witness the intricate beauty of brocade, where complex patterns are not merely printed, but are woven directly into the very fabric itself, often with threads of actual gold and silver, glimmering with a subtle, timeless brilliance that speaks of enduring value. These are not merely fibers, they are embodiments of value, scarcity, and the profound human skill required to transform them from raw material into works of art. The colors held within these threads and dyes were not simply aesthetic choices, dictated by passing whims or seasonal trends. They were powerful, unspoken declarations of power, status, and exclusive privilege. Imagine the richness of a royal purple, a hue so deep and profound it seems to hold the very essence of twilight or a storm-laden sky. This wasn't just any purple. It was often derived from the minute glands of specific sea snails, a process requiring thousands upon thousands of these tiny creatures to produce a single ounce of dye, an undertaking so arduous, so labor-intensive, and so astronomically costly that only the wealthiest monarchs and highest-ranking nobles could possibly afford it. To wear purple, therefore, was not merely fashionable. It was to proclaim, without uttering a single word, one's undisputed position at the pinnacle of society, a visible, shimmering barrier separating the elite from all others, a custom understood by every eye. Consider also the vibrant crimson reds, often achieved from the dried bodies of cochineal insects, meticulously cultivated and imported, or the deep, captivating indigo blues extracted from exotic plants grown in sun-drenched, far-off lands. These were not commonplace dyes found in any village market. Their extreme rarity, the immense complexity of their extraction and application, and the unparalleled vibrancy and permanence of their final hue made them exclusive treasures of the privileged few. A noble clad in a blazing scarlet cloak, a color that seemed to burn with an inner fire, or a deep sapphire gown mirroring the depth of the ocean, was not just elegantly dressed. They were wearing a living, breathing manifestation of their vast resources, their extensive connections to distant trade networks, and their unchallenged, inherited right to stand utterly apart. Color in the medieval world was a profound and eloquent language of hierarchy, spoken eloquently from the very fabric of one's attire. The hands that worked these precious materials were those of master artisans, individuals whose extraordinary skill was honed over decades of dedicated practice, often passed down through generations within quiet, secretive guilds. Imagine the weaver at the loom, his movements rhythmic, precise, almost meditative, his eyes fixed on the intricate pattern unfolding thread by painstaking thread, a living testament to profound patience and unwavering focus. Each throw of the shuttle, each press of the foot treadle was a deliberate, conscious act of creation, slowly building a masterpiece of beauty one fragile strand at a time. The embroiderer, perhaps a noblewoman herself, dedicating hours in quiet contemplation, or a highly skilled professional craftswoman, would sit with unwavering concentration, her needle flashing with a jeweler's precision, laying down threads of silk and metallic gold to form intricate florets, powerful heraldic beasts, or serene devotional scenes. These were not hurried tasks driven by urgency. They were meditations in motion, an homage to perfection, where time seemed to slow, allowing for absolute precision.
The creation of a single noble garment was a collaborative symphony of specialized skills, a quiet ballet of many hands working in perfect harmony. From the shrewd merchants who sourced the raw silk from the distant East, navigating perilous trade routes, to the skilled dye masters who expertly extracted brilliant, lasting colors from rare ingredients, to the patient weavers who painstakingly crafted the rich, complex fabrics on their massive looms, and finally to the master tailors and embroiderers who shaped and adorned the finished piece. Each step was a testament to extraordinary craftsmanship and a complex, interconnected system of production. Every stitch, every fold, every meticulously chosen bead or pearl added to the garment's profound symbolic weight, transforming it from mere cloth into a living emblem of power, unparalleled artistry, and unyielding social stratification. This custom of elaborate textile creation offers a profound reflection on human creativity and the timeless, enduring value of skilled human labor. In an age long before the advent of mass production and automated machinery, every exquisitely embroidered sleeve, every perfectly dyed length of velvet represented countless hours of human ingenuity, boundless patience, and unwavering dedication. It reminds us that true luxury often lies not in mere expense or superficial display,
but in the meticulous hand of the artisan, the deep, inherited knowledge of materials, and the unhurried, almost spiritual pursuit of perfection. The intrinsic beauty of these textiles whisper tales not just of the wearers who paraded in them, but of the countless unnamed, often unseen hands that brought such splendor into being, their silent artistry weaving itself into the very fabric of history itself. This careful crafting of identity through material possessions speaks to a universal human impulse, the deep-seated desire to define oneself, to belong to a distinguished group, and, paradoxically, to stand profoundly apart from the common throng. For the nobility, their clothing was an essential performative aspect of their identity, a second skin that eloquently proclaimed their inherent right to rule, their connection to ancient revered lineage, and their perceived divine favor. It was a sophisticated language of privilege, spoken not through loud words, but through the tactile luxury of velvet, the shimmering fluidity of silk, and the radiant, exclusive glow of precious dyes. This constant emphasis on appearance underscored the weight of their roles and the expectations placed upon them. As we linger in this quiet, creative workshop, let the rhythmic clack of the loom be a gentle, steady pulse in the stillness, the soft swoosh of the needle a calming whisper, like the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. Imagine the rich textures of the fabrics, the cool, flowing silk, the plush, deep velvet, the raised, intricate patterns of brocade, flowing through your mind like a soft, comforting current. See the vibrant, aristocratic colors, deep purples that seem to hold ancient secrets, and blazing reds that capture the essence of sunset, swirling like peaceful dreams in the soft candlelight. Let the profound patience and unwavering dedication of these medieval artisans envelop you, a sense of quiet craftsmanship and timeless beauty that transcends the centuries. Feel the deep value inherent in each individual thread, each meticulous stitch, a quiet testament to human ingenuity and the unyielding pursuit of perfection. This serene world of intricate textiles and the silent, powerful language of color now gently wraps itself around your thoughts, easing you into a state of deep, undisturbed peace as you drift towards the quiet, colorful landscapes of your dreams, cradled by the artistry of the past.
Having journeyed through the intricate tapestries of medieval life, from the sacred stillness of morning blessings to the refined whispers of aristocratic balls and the silent declarations of their peculiar footwear and textiles, our path now gently leads us to a contemplative space. Imagine settling into a quiet corner, perhaps within a sun-dappled library of an ancient abbey, where the scent of old parchment and polished wood fills the air. Here, the passage of time feels palpable, yet serene, as if the very dust motes dancing in the light are fragments of centuries past. This is a moment to connect the threads of our exploration, to weave them into a coherent understanding,
and to reflect on the enduring imprint of these unique customs upon the grand canvas of history. As we recall the varied scenes we have quietly observed, a profound sense of distinctiveness emerges, defining the medieval customs as a vibrant, living testament to an age unlike our own. Remember the quiet solemnity of the church services, where light filtered through stained glass, and the scent of incense mingled with whispered prayers, offering solace and strength in a world often fraught with uncertainty. This was a custom born of deep faith, where every gesture and chant forged an unbreakable bond between the human spirit and the divine, providing an anchoring rhythm to daily existence. It was a serene affirmation of a world where spirituality permeated every waking moment, a gentle current guiding souls through life's tumultuous waters. Then drift back to the rhythmic simplicity of peasant life, where hands calloused by honest toil worked in harmony with the turning seasons. Their customs were born of direct necessity and an intimate relationship with the earth. The blessing of seeds before sowing, the communal effort of harvest, the humble shared meals around a crackling hearth. Their attire, rough-spun and practical, spoke volumes about a life lived without pretense, deeply rooted in the soil. These were customs of resilience, of an enduring connection to nature's cycles, teaching patience, gratitude, and the quiet dignity found in honest labor. The distant lowing of cattle and the rustle of wind through golden fields seemed to echo softly, carrying the timeless melody of their lives. From the earth-bound existence of the common folk, we ascended to the luminous, intricate world of the nobility, where every aspect of life was a carefully orchestrated performance. Recall the rustling of opulent silks, velvets, and brocades, fabrics dyed in hues of impossible richness, royal purples from rare sea snails, vibrant crimsons from exotic insects. These were not merely clothes, they were symbols of power, scarcity, and immense craftsmanship, each stitch a testament to meticulous artistry and immense wealth. The very material and color acted as an unspoken language, creating subtle yet unbreachable social boundaries, distinguishing the exalted from the humble with silent, shimmering authority. Consider, too, the peculiar elegance of the poulaines, those elongated, pointed shoes that defied practicality. These were more than mere fashion statements. They were audacious declarations of leisure and elevated status, their length directly proportional to the wearer's rank. The soft, gentle scuffing sound of their tips on polished stone floors was a peculiar melody of privilege, a quiet testament to a life lived far removed from physical labor. This custom, seemingly whimsical, laid bare the human impulse to assert dominance and identity through material display, a fascinating window into the nuanced vanity of the era. And then remember the royal ball, not as a scene of boisterous revelry, but as a silent stage for the intricate dance of social diplomacy. Here, under the soft glow of countless beeswax candles and the tender music of lutes and harps, every gesture, Every whispered word, every subtle glance was imbued with layers of meaning. Relationships were subtly forged, alliances quietly affirmed, and status delicately navigated through the measured steps of a pavan and the careful raising of a wine goblet. It was a realm where grace was a tool, silence a powerful weapon, and every interaction a testament to the sophisticated art of courtly communication. The air still seems to hold the faint, sweet scent of melting wax and the hushed echoes of unspoken stories. These customs, in their collective uniqueness, served as a profound mirror reflecting the beliefs, fears, aspirations, and social order of a bygone era. They were the tangible expressions of what it meant to live in the Middle Ages, a world deeply rooted in faith, perpetually aware of its place in the divine order, a society structured by rigid hierarchies, yet bound by communal ties, and a human experience rich with both hardship and profound beauty. Every custom, whether solemn or celebratory, practical or extravagant, contributed to the distinctive tapestry of their lives, providing meaning, order, and a shared sense of identity. They reveal a worldview where the sacred was intertwined with the mundane, where hierarchy was divinely ordained, and where tradition provided the compass for navigating an often unpredictable world.
The quiet whisper of these customs also hints at their subtle continuation and gentle influence into the present. While the forms may have changed, the underlying human impulses, the search for meaning, the desire for belonging, the aspiration for status, the embrace of ritual, and the expression of creativity remain timeless. The echoes of medieval reverence might still be heard in the quietude of modern churches, albeit in different forms. The resilience and resourcefulness of ancient peasant life resonate in the simple joys of gardening or community endeavors today. The timeless allure of fine craftsmanship and the power of symbolic attire continue to manifest in contemporary fashion and art. These are not direct causal links, but rather a soft, almost ethereal sense of continuity, a shared thread running through the grand narrative of human experience. Consider how history, like an ancient storyteller, continues to whisper its tales if we only listen with a quiet heart. The remnants of these distinctive customs, though centuries removed, still speak to us of enduring human values, the comfort found in shared ritual, the strength in community, the dignity in labor, the beauty in artistry, and the constant striving for meaning beyond the fleeting moments of existence. They remind us that while the external forms of society may evolve, certain fundamental aspects of the human spirit remain constant, echoing across the vast expanse of time. This quiet reflection encourages us to ponder the unfolding nature of time itself, how centuries pass like gentle breaths, carrying away the grandest empires and the humblest lives, yet leaving behind indelible traces of their unique ways. The intricate dance of cause and effect, the gradual evolution of human thought and social structure is a subtle marvel. These medieval customs, once vibrant and all-encompassing, now exist as spectral memories,
yet they hold a profound wisdom within their silent forms. They teach us that every age, every culture, weaves its own distinct tapestry of life, unique in its patterns, yet connected by the shared threads of human experience. Let these gathered images, these distinct customs now gently converge in your mind. Feel the peaceful flow from the sacred to the earthy, from the practical to the opulent, from the solemn to the subtly diplomatic. Allow the sum of these unique parts to create a comprehensive yet utterly tranquil portrait of a world long past. Sense the lingering fragrance of ancient beliefs, the quiet hum of enduring human spirit, and the soft, almost imperceptible rhythm of time's gentle passage. This tapestry of history, rich with unique customs and profound insights, now softly unfurls within your consciousness, a serene landscape upon which your thoughts can gently rest. Allow this calm understanding, this deep acceptance of history's quiet whispers to envelop you completely, guiding you with unparalleled gentleness into the deepest, most restorative sleep. As the echoes of medieval customs gently recede into the quiet expanse of your mind, allow yourself to drift further, softer still. The unique tapestries of faith, toil, elegance, and symbolism have woven a calming narrative, a gentle current guiding you towards serene rest. Now release any lingering thoughts, any threads of the waking world, and simply surrender to the profound peace that embraces you. May you sink into the deepest, most tranquil slumber, welcoming a morning filled with renewed energy and a clear mind. Sleep well. And once more, if this journey through history has truly soothed your spirit, please consider pressing like, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment. Your quiet engagement helps these whispers of the past find their way to other weary souls seeking gentle repose.